everyone. My name's Roger Anderson. Welcome to my studio. You're at A Heart for a Trail, a transplant story. And I wanted to share today a little bit about my journey after my heart transplant. We're going to go back to just right after my heart transplant. I started setting goals on different things I wanted to do. One of those things was I wanted to get as strong as possible and work on getting back into shape. The heart transplant can really take a toll on your body. And leading up to that, I got to tell you, I couldn't walk a block without having to stop and rest. Well, after my heart transplant, through the love and support of my wife and the encouragement, I got started on one of my goals. And that goal was to get from doing having heart transplant to doing a 5K. Now, our camp meeting every year in July does a 5K. My wife had done it in years past, and I'd never been able to do it just because of the heart failure and dealing with that. Well, I was bound and determined I was going to do that this year. That was 9 months off from my heart transplant, and figured, okay, that would give me enough time. But there are some challenges, and I'd like to share a couple of those challenges with you today. The first challenge was 11 days after my heart transplant, I got to leave the hospital. We were staying at the Navy Lodge on Moffett Field. The VA provided us that housing because you have to be within a certain distance of the hospital. Literally, there are appointments 2 to 3 times a week for the first month, then a couple times a week the next month. So you have to be there for 3 months afterwards within that short distance. That was a blessing, having that Navy Lodge. However, one of the things that you have to learn to deal with, or I had to learn to deal with, is when they give you a heart transplant, they cut that nerve that goes into the heart, and that's something that doesn't get repaired. You lose what's called the fight or flight syndrome, and in my case, it really was hard for me to adjust. That right after that first little bit out of the hospital, I had to use a walker to walk, because if I moved too fast, my heart wouldn't catch up, and I get real dizzy and literally have to sit down, or else I probably would have fallen down. There were a couple close calls, and that's a different story. But that's one of the problems, and that took a while. We actually ended up having to get a little monitor that goes on your finger that will show you what your heart rate is. And I would have to literally work. If I was lying down, I'd have to start moving my arms, and I'd get to a point where I could sit up. Then I'd start moving my arms and my legs, and I'd put that monitor on to make sure my heart rate got up to a point where I knew I could get up and walk around and do whatever I needed to do. But that took some adjustment. So getting up and just taking a short walk, it took some effort. And the second thing I was dealing with at that point too is, when I left the hospital, I was 190 pounds. And in I think it was about a week, I went from that 190 pounds up to 220 pounds. And it was always all fluid retention on my body. Well, anybody who's ever dealt with that, my feet were so swollen I could not even put on my shoes. I was wearing the little hospital sock type slipper things, and it was tough. Well, it was painful. I didn't want to do it. But through the encouragement of my wife, her support, and literally everybody, she was right next to me every step of the way. Every step I took, she took one and was there with me, encouraging and giving me the support I needed to be able to go through this. It was also a lot of my friends who were just like you, who had given me encouragement, were praying for me, and I knew that they were back there behind me and giving me that gentle push to do the exercises. I got to tell you, people, that is special. To know you have the support of others and the love of a spouse, the love of family. I don't even know how I can thank them enough. Well, between the heart and the fluids, just walking up and down the hallways took some effort. But through the encouragement, through the support, probably the stubbornness of myself that I'm going to do this, we progressed from walking up and down the halls. In just a couple weeks, I was starting to walk outside. We'd walk out along up and down the sidewalk there at the Navy Lodge and through the halls there at the VA to where I could start really walking again. Finally, the fluid came off, and I've had some people tell me that they should have given me a heart that doesn't have so much energy, because I just kept on walking. My wife and I, they're at the Palo Alto. They have this marsh area out there that they've set up with a bunch of hiking trails, and Christy and I just would get out there and walk. 2 months after my heart transplant, we went out to that marsh area, and they have these trails set up, and we started walking on one. And we were following the signs and walking around it, and about halfway through, my wife was like, "Are you doing okay?" And we realized we had walked 3.5 miles. And it's like, not quickly. I got to tell you, it wasn't quick, but we had walked it. And I was pretty excited, and it's like, well, we're 3.5 miles out. It's 3.5 miles back. We can turn around and go back, or it looks like it's about the exact same distance just to follow the trail all the way around until it comes back on itself. So we did that. When it was done, we had walked 7 miles. 2 months after the heart transplant. Now, not quickly. It was 3 hours, something like that. Don't exactly remember, but it was not quick. Well, just kept on walking. Pretty soon, we got to go home. One of the things that they got me into was cardiac rehab. And down there in Palo Alto, went in cardiac rehab, walking on a treadmill, pedaling a bike, doing all the different things, being monitored. And they'd start pushing and pushing. Get a little bit better, get a little bit better. The goal was get a little bit better each time. We didn't have to see drastic changes, but just see some changes. So we kept on going. When we finally got to come all the way back home to Grants Pass, I got into cardiac rehab up here to finish my cardiac rehab, and they started pushing me. Well, we heard about a Donate Life event up in the Portland area for doing a 5K. It was in June, so that's 8 months after my heart transplant. And we were like, yeah, we can do that. I believe it was Mount Tabor up there in the Portland area that they had this event at. Well, I kept on walking. We kept on just finding hiking trails and going. And we went up there in that June, and my wife and I, we did the walk. Donate Life. Now, this one was not a really any kind of competitive. It was just about getting out and doing this. They had some different booths set up along the way. Different people helped sponsoring it. And Donate Life had some booths, and got to meet a lot of people. Got to meet some families who loved ones were donors. And that was really special. Well, we finished that, and we're pretty excited. It was up and down this mountain, and we got home, and literally a month later was the camp meeting, and we started out. I had a good friend named Randy Hill who said, "I'm going to walk with you," and turns out jog a little bit, and we took off, and I finished that 5K in 45 minutes. I was ecstatic. 8 months or 9 months at this point from my heart transplant to an actual 5K where I was able to run and walk some. with the help and support of my friends, family, and especially my wife, I was able to do that. A month after that, in August, we went down to Sacramento for a heart failure 5K. And it was helping support people who had heart failure. I'd spent 21 years in heart failure, so it was kind of special. Month after the first competitive one, I did my second one. I finished in just over 40 minutes. And I got to tell you that I just thank God every day. I thank God for my donor, the family of my donor. I do not know who it is. And just all I know is he was 41 years old and he was from Canada. And I just thank God every day for the family and also the support of people just like you that encouraged me, prayed with me, prayed for me. I had people from all the way here on the West Coast, all the way back to Florida, Tennessee, Dallas area, people praying for me. And it was those prayers, that encouragement, and that support is what gotten me through. Well, yesterday I played 3 games of softball in one day, just because the Lord's good and I just love getting out and exercises. Today, it was jump in the Jeep, find a road, see where it ends. Today, it ended in this little tiny meadow here, and I decided to get out and have a conversation. So I want to just thank everyone, especially my father-in-law, Jim Monteith, for all he's done to help and support. But I want to end with a question for you today. Where's your heart telling you to go on your next adventure? Because that's what it's all about. It's about going on in adventures, getting out and seeing what God's created for us. And I just want to encourage you to get out and enjoy. God bless.